This is Center Stage, putting your firm in the spotlight by highlighting business owners and other industry experts to help take your firm to the next level. Hey everyone, and welcome to Center Stage. I'm your host, John Henson, and this week, talking about something that I think would benefit a lot of smaller firms out there who, you're growing, but you might be either just in that in-between phase, or you just, not necessarily in a position to hire full-time leadership help, but you still do need some help. And that is, the term is fractional leadership. You've probably heard of it. And it's something that I think a lot of people aren't truly aware of how beneficial it could actually be. And so to help shine a light on this, I am joined by Adi Vaxman from Sheba Consulting. I mean, this is her world. This is what she does. And so I know she's going to do a great job here of just really helping us understand what this world is all about and all the benefits of it. So Adi, thanks for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me on. It's cool to be here.
Of course. So before we jump in, tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is exactly that you do with, helping firms with their fractional leadership.
Cool. So about myself, not that interesting. I live in New Jersey. That's where we're headquartered. My company's name is Sheba Consulting. We provide fractional leadership services and some supporting services in the areas of operations, technology, and HR. And what that actually means is that many companies, especially when they're growing, especially when they're small and they're growing through what I call growth spurts, they go through a series of changes that requires them to change their infrastructure. And it's putting a lot of kind of heavy lifting on some of the company owners when it comes to putting in all the infrastructure and taking care of all that in the business. And so we come in as a partner to that company, as a part of their C-level team, as fractional COO, CHRO, CPO, which is Chief People Officer, or CTO, which is kind of not my side of the business, but my partner's side of the business. And we help them do all that. We help them create the infrastructure. We help them manage their teams. We help them put in the foundation to be able to grow. We help them make sure that they have the right processes, the right systems, the right teams, the right structure in place. The technology that they're using, and the right HR methodologies, and to align their strategy to the growth that they want to reach. And we've been doing this a very long time. I've been doing this for over 30 years now, I'm afraid to say, because I'm aging myself. And I went to school, I did an MBA, I did a PhD, all kinds of non-relevant things. But I started my career in technology, and I've been a tech geek ever since. It's something that is very close to me. And the company was founded in 2019. 2009, not 19.
Oh yeah, it's a big difference.
Company was founded in 2009. We've been around for 14 years. It's been a while, but we've been doing this full time for the past 7 or 8 years. And we have a team of 10 people that are helping clients grow and take back control over the business rather than the business controlling them, which is what we're seeing a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, especially for, solo small firm owners, like that is a really big pain point for them, working 50, 60, 70 hours a week, because, they have the casework and the stuff that they're actually in business for. And then they have all of the other stuff on top of that of running a business. So for maybe people who are just unfamiliar with this topic altogether, what exactly is fractional leadership, and what size firms do you think really tend to benefit from fractional leadership?
Yes. So fractional leadership is really just a concept of hiring a C-level executive on a fractional basis. A long time ago, it was very popular for CFOs. It used to be called outsourced CFO or part-time CFO. And this is when we started. It was not as prevalent, and now it's a lot more common. People know it in the CFO side and the CMO marketing side. And it's really just taking someone who is an executive who has a lot of experience and is putting them in your business as part of your business for all intents and purposes, except they're not an employee. They're there on a fractional basis. They don't work full time, and they do this for several businesses at a time. Each fractional executive usually has a load of, depending on the size of the engagements, but anywhere between 3 and 10 businesses that they're working with per person. And that gives them many, many advantages to helping your business. And I'll get to the size question in a minute, but the main advantage is you get someone with a lot of experience that you not otherwise would be able to afford, because those people, if they're out in the employment market, they probably would cost, $500,000, $600,000 a year. Most businesses, including those that are, making 25 million in revenues, can't afford that. And they don't have a justification for that. They don't need that. So you take a person that has a lot of experience, that have seen companies grow many, many times. In our case, because we do this, because fractional executives do this for many companies at the time, we've seen this a million times. So a regular executive that works for a company, 5 to 6 years and then switches in a 30-year career, they would be working for 5 or 6 companies. And that's their experience. Maybe in the beginning of their career, they have a few more. A fractional executive has experience with sometimes hundreds of companies. And that experience is something that you can't learn when you're an employee. And I know, because I've been an employee, I've been in COO roles for huge chunk of my life, and the learning, what I'm learning as a fractional COO is very, very different than what I was learning as an employee executive of even larger companies. So that's about the model and the advantages.
Yeah, and one question, one thing that I heard, and I know that our audience probably caught on to this pretty quickly, and they're probably screaming this at their car speakers or wherever they're listening to this right now. You mentioned that, fractional leaders, they, and I was going to save this question for later, but you brought it up now, and I think it's a great time to ask it. You brought up how fractional leaders, in whatever position they're in, they're simultaneously working with multiple firms at the same time. I'm sure you get this question a lot. Are there any ethical concerns between a fractional leader going back and forth between companies when it comes to, data or systems or client information? How do you address the ethical side of things, especially for the legal side who has a lot of those ethical concerns?
Of course. So yes, absolutely. Of course, there are ethical concerns. And I think they also vary by the type of fractional work that you do. So for example, in our fractional CTO work, when we are actually developing intellectual property and software for clients, that is sometimes more serious, because we have to be very sure that we are working on very different types of clients that really have nothing to do with one another. And on the COO, CHRO, on my side of the business, yes, there are ethical concerns, and there are 2 types of concerns. One, I would say there's a security and IT concern, which we take very seriously. We completely separate our clients' systems, the environments. Our employees work on separate environments. We have really like separate browsers, separate everything. Everything is really separate. So you can jump between clients without ever risking data from one client being brought into another client. That's one thing. So in terms of security, IT security, information security, cloud systems that we use, everything that we use, we do take a lot of time to consider how these things could happen and what could go wrong, and how to make sure that passwords are never shared. We use the highest levels of information security. We use password generators and password managers that are all separate and things like that. So we do work on our own tech stack internally to make sure that our clients don't get exposed to one another when it shouldn't happen. That's on one hand. On another hand, there is a personal, like, ethical concern. If we work on the same, so we work on a lot of, we work in medical practices, we work on legal practices. And so we try to make sure that there is again, in medical practices, it's not so, this is not the same for legal practices, but that they're not in the same geography and the same area, right? So when we take on clients, we're not going to take 2 podiatrists in Long Island, because that would be a conflict of interest. for us. And when I say we, like, it's possible that we as a company will do it, but it will be different people that will not serve both clients. So that's an example. We have so we do have safeguards in place to prevent that. In the case of law practices, we tried to avoid duplicating the same area of practice, the same type of practice. So we're not going to take two employment attorney offices that are competing with one another. However, some offices that we take do have multiple specialties in their offices. So again, we separate the people that work on these things. And the other thing I want to say is that when it comes to doing what we do, which is on the operational, financial, HR side of things, most of the places that you'll see any conflict is in the HR when you're recruiting. So you're not like, recruiting. So we obviously have contractual safeguards in place to make sure, we can never recruit from any of our clients, things like that. We're never going to steal a person from a client to take to another client. So like we do have those contractual safeguards in place. We also have human safeguards in place because we just won't do that because it's not right. So whenever there is an ethical concern or a question, we do discuss it internally as a company. We do discuss it with a client. At occasions, I asked for a client permission to take on a new client because I wasn't always sure if there are areas that could be problematic. So those things will happen. We try to avoid getting into areas where our clients would in any way be competing with one another. So that we don't ever have these, like, you get this feeling in your gut that, okay, this isn't right. So I'm happy to say that in 14 years, I've never had an issue where I felt like there was a concern because we just prevent them from happening. We send clients to other agencies. We sometimes recommend someone else when we feel that there might be an issue.
Yeah, no, and that's great. And I think it's a really good answer. And I think it addresses everything that I think people would be concerned about there. So kind of moving back into, everything that a fractional leader is capable of. I know you mentioned that they can handle, people and HR and stuff like that. So if I understood it correctly, it does sound like fractional leaders have the ability to manage employees on behalf of the firm. And if so, how does that, so how does that work? Right. Like, in the way that I'm envisioning it, obviously the fractional leader is going to be in a remote place, but maybe if the team is all in one office, how does a fractional leader manage employees in the location where the firm owner also works?
So first of all, we absolutely manage teams in client accounts. That's part of what we do as executives, right? We have to manage teams. So many of our clients are remote or hybrid, where offices are almost not as significant as they used to be in the past. So that takes away that issue. We do visit client sites. Sometimes we do participate in meetings and offsites and, quarterly and parties and whatever else for our clients. And since we work with many geographies and we have people all across the United States, we try to also match the person sort of to the locale of the company that we work with, depending on whether it's necessary. Sometimes it's really not necessary. And you'd be surprised. Yes, you can manage people remotely, even if they're all sitting in an office. It takes a lot more effort and knowing how to do it and be deliberate about it, but it is possible and it is done. We do it with Zoom. We talk a lot. We have all the communication tools that we can. And the one thing I want to say about fractional, that a lot of people have this, when they envision in their minds, they see it like fractional. Okay, so you work for me on Mondays. And that's not at all the way that we work. And I don't think that there's any fractional leadership practice that works that way. If we're yours a day a week, let's say, we're not working on a Monday or on a Tuesday. We are working all the time. We are, working 5, 6, sometimes 7 days a week. Don't let anybody hear that I said that, but we work all the time. We are The only time that we're not available is when we're in another meeting. And usually if somebody would reach out, we say, okay, we're in another meeting. I'll get back to you after the meeting. But we are available all the time. We schedule meetings with all clients based on, the client needs. It's really not as complicated as it sounds. And I'll tell you, a long time ago, I was an employee as a CEO for a large organization with revenues about 250 million a year. It was a really large organization, about 1,500 employees all around the world. I managed locations in 40 countries. It was quite a large operation. During that time with that company, I realized that 80% of my time is spent doing things that I am not necessary for, that my abilities, my experience, my knowledge is not necessary for. I could do them with someone much more junior doing all the work and me just supervising. And that would be 20% of my time. So if you know how to manage people, if you know how to mentor people, if you know how to lead, really a lot of executives spend a lot of time doing things that someone a lot more junior and cheaper can do. And so we have this down to an art. We have this process really well defined in our company. We have a team of support people that are doing those more junior tasks. And so the client doesn't pay for my time or a fractional COO's time when they can pay for, a manager's time or a director levels person time. And so I think that's, and that comes with just experience in doing this a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And so then if they are able to manage people, do they then have the autonomy to hire and fire kind of whoever they want based on their discretion? Or does that still fall on the owner of the firm at the end of the day?
So every company is different. And first of all, the answer is yes, absolutely. Just like any C-level in your company would have the authority and the autonomy to make decisions, to make purchases, to change things, to hire, to fire, to do whatever's needed to run the business. And it really depends on the business owner. Every relationship that we have with a client is different. Some relationships, the clients want to be a lot more involved in certain aspects. Some clients say, I don't want to do finance. I can't do finance. I hate it. It's not my thing. Leave me alone. Don't ask me. Okay. Some clients say, I don't want you to hire without me. I want to be involved in the hiring of who's brought into my team. And some say, I just don't know how to do this. And I want you to do this because you're better at it. So it really depends on the business owner or owners and the other people on the team. And I want to say something that's really critical. One thing that a lot of people get wrong is like, okay, I'm going to hire a fractional person and they're going to take all of this off of me and I'm never going to hear about it again. It's not like that. This is a partnership. And a partnership means that, yes, some of the stuff and maybe a lot of the stuff I will be able to take off your hands, or we will be able to take off your hands completely, but it's still a partnership. And that partnership means that whenever we feel that there's something the business owner needs to be pulled into, we pull them in. And whenever we feel that they need to be involved in decisions, then they are involved in decisions. And they need to provide the backup and the authority and be on board with the process, especially when it comes to growth and change. If the business owner is not on board with the process and they're not actively involved, that process will fail. And we've seen this many times. A lot of business owners, they just want to offload it. I want somebody else to deal with it. But that somebody else can help with the advice. They can help with making the decision. They can help with probably taking 95% of it off your desk, but they're not going to take the burden of managing the business and being the leader of that business from you, because that's not what you want. You want to be involved in your business. Otherwise you'd sell it.
Right. Yeah. I was thinking, like one of the things that I often hear a lot of times is it's difficult for a lot of these business owners to relinquish control of anything. But as you're talking, it's not really relinquishing control of anything. It really still sounds like the business owner still has the ability to be as involved as they feel like they need to be.
Absolutely.
It's just delegating, and it's
Absolutely.
rather than just having a team full of junior level people that you're managing all on your own, you have that higher level, more experienced person handling that those leadership accountabilities on them, and you're left to really kind of do more of what you need to do. Another thing that I see a lot with, especially with smaller firms, is that they're not maximizing their software, their CRMs. They're struggling with settling on KPIs, finding good KPIs. Is that something that a fractional leader can help with? And how does a fractional leader come in to a firm that they're not really familiar with, and be able to set up something that helps the firm run better, and come up with KPIs that are appropriate for that firm?
So it's almost two things. One thing is that it's the first thing we do is we do something called a gap analysis. We run a discovery process and we look at 5 or 6 different pillars, areas that we usually look at in any company, to see how that company is doing. Obviously, the finances, the systems and technology tech stack in general, the team and the people, the company structure, how it's structured, like the management structure, the organizational structure, and any process and workflows that they currently have in place. And when we do that, we find problem areas, we find a lot of gaps, and then we look at what's causing these gaps and prioritize how we can resolve them. So we work closely with law firms and with medical practices, and what we learned during the years that we've been doing this is that doctors and lawyers went to school to be doctors and lawyers. They didn't go to school to manage businesses. And managing a business is a specialty. And the fact that a business owner is amazing at doing what they do, at being a doctor, being a lawyer, at being a software developer, at being whatever it is that that business is doing, doesn't mean that they're going to be great at managing the business. Managing the business takes a very different skill set, personality, and abilities, and all of that. So that's why I said it's a partnership. One can't live without the other, right? You need to have a core business in order to be able to have a business. And we don't usually get involved much in your core business. We're not going to tell the doctors how to, cure cancer, how to care for patients, and we're not going to tell the lawyers how to argue in court. But we are going to tell them if they're leaving money on the table, if they have inefficient systems that are not billing correctly, if they're not collecting hours right, which leads to problematic billing, if they're not doing collection, whatever, all these different things, the wrong system. So when it comes to KPIs, when we do that gap analysis, one of the things that we look at is we look at where are you now and where do you want to be? What is kind of the difference between where we are and where we want to be? And based on that, we decide how do we measure how successful we are in getting to where we want to be. And that has got to be metrics, right? You have to work with numbers. So of course, there's like the low-hanging fruits of, right, how much revenue am I generating? How many hours am I billing? But those are not the only things. You got to look at other KPIs. You got to look at how efficient you're doing it. How much support staff do you have? What's your overhead? Some of these are financial KPIs. Some of them are not necessarily financial KPIs, but they're, how average time to close a case. In the case of lawyers and doctors, how many of your customers are coming back? Maybe they're not coming back. Maybe they're doing one thing with you. And it depends on the specialty, because some specialties, okay, you're only going to be doing it once. But a lot of specialties we work with, like employment attorneys, if your clients are not coming back to you after an engagement, then something's wrong. And what are we doing to get them back? And how are we measuring whether, the satisfaction of the client or the patient? And so all of these KPIs, like when we go through the discovery process, we start coming up with things that we should be measuring and looking into.
Yeah.
In order to figure out how successful the business is and whether we're, on track with our plan. And then we figure out how do we get these numbers to be working for us, which means, okay, let's say we want to see the ratio of partners to junior associates to paralegals in certain types of cases. How do we know that information? We need to have a system that will help us track the right things so that it can spit out what we needed to spit out to always be able to see whether we're on track or not. And that's where we start looking into your CRMs, your practice management system, your time tracking, your billing, making sure that these systems are correctly used by employees, because many times they're not, if you even have them. Some people don't have them, only have some of them. They're not implemented correctly. They need to be used right. They need to be connected to one another. So there's got to be some kind of integration. They have to talk to each other. And there's got to be some kind of a dashboard or a way to pull reports where you can see at any given time how your business is doing. And those are usually areas that our clients are not strong in, because again, they know how to do what they do. They don't necessarily know how to run a business.
Right. Yeah. And at the same time, especially in the legal world, they're very slow to adopt to new technology. And so a lot of this new stuff comes along and it's very intimidating. There's a feeling of like a really big time commitment up front to try to figure this out, set it all up. And especially because most lawyers think that their practice is the most unique thing ever. There's no other practice like it. And so,
Yes.
they've got to find a super unique solution for them. And that's fine. But there are those solutions out there and there are people that can help who have that experience, like you mentioned. So one other question that I wanted to ask you before we start to wrap up here, where in your experience, someone is like, okay, I think this is something that I need, but which position do I fill first? What leadership position, where do I start with that? And kind of to build on that, how do you, I guess, differentiate between needing a junior level person to take things off your plate versus being at that point where you do need fractional leadership?
So I can tell you that most of our clients come to us or start with us between when they hit revenues of between 1 and 10 million. We have anywhere from, not so much under 1, but like anywhere from 1 to 25 or 30
Mhm.
at the moment, but we've done much larger
Yeah.
in the past. And so one of the mistakes that we see business owners make often is that they actually do think they need an admin. So they come and they say, oh, I need an admin, a junior level person to take all this stuff off my hands. And then we talk to them and we do some discovery and we do some digging and we realize, no, you don't need an admin, you need a COO. And the reason that you think you need an admin is that you perceive all this stuff to be administrative. But in fact, it's very, very strategic, because those
Mm.
decisions, your admin is not going to be able to make the decision which systems to implement and which systems to implement first, and
Yeah.
how to integrate those systems with one another, and what KPIs you need to track. And so the answer is most likely both. So, which is why I said that, I realized that 80% of my time is being spent doing things that someone junior can do. And the answer from what we're seeing is both. You do need that
Mhm.
high level person that will form the strategy about what problems you're solving. Which one are you solving first? What are the dependencies between these problems? And what is the impact of each of those gaps? And what is the impact going to be on the growth? How is that going to get you to where you need to be? A junior level person is not going to be able to do that because they don't have the knowledge and they don't have the perspective and they haven't done that before. And then you need a more junior level person to do a lot of the day to day. So deal with the corporate governance and do the bookkeeping and chase clients for payment and look at the data and identify issues. And like a lot of these things, and I don't know, like a lot of administrative things that the CEO is not going to do because it doesn't make sense for you to pay them to do, but you do need someone to do. And it's the same. I'll give you an example from like hiring, right? So many law firms we see, they have their paralegals do recruiting, and they have their paralegals do bookkeeping, and they have their paralegals do a lot of administrative stuff. Paralegals also didn't go to school and chose that profession in order to be an operations person.
Right.
So they may usually, sometimes they are, but they may not be good at it. And they find themselves doing things that are not their strength and they're not doing them well. So you're paying someone, whatever you're paying them to do something they're not good at. It takes them a long time. You're really wasting your money. And the reason that you do that is because they're there, right? You have a body in a seat, and you're going to let them do things that they do. That's why fractional services are so great, because you don't need to have a body in a seat. You may need 5 hours a week some weeks, and you may need 50 hours a week some weeks. And you use what you pay for what you use, and that's it. But you get people that know how to do this and have done this a million times, and they know all the different fields, because sometimes it's very different fields. Finance, bookkeeping, accounting, very different from, I don't know, managing HR parties, or managing cultures, or recruiting. Like, those are very different skill sets and different people.
Yeah.
And so the answer, in my opinion, is always a combination of both. You need the higher level person that will decide what is the direction, what's the priority, how much does it cost, what are we going to spend money on, where is it going to get us? And you need the more junior level people to execute on that with the guidance of your leadership person.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, what I'm hearing is that if someone out there is listening and they have questions about this, they should reach out to you and really have a more in-depth conversation about their firm specific needs. So, how can someone reach out to you and learn more about what you guys do?
So we are online. Our website is Sheba Consulting, SHEBA consulting.com. We're on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. We have direct live chat on our website. You can just, start talking to us. A person from the team will answer you right away. We do a lot of AI work. So we implement a lot of AI tools for our clients to, again, make them more efficient. You can reach us any, phone, online, any social network. We are embracing technology. We love technology. So like that fear of technology, you're not going to find in my team. We all really love technology. Everybody on my team is tech geeks. It's part of what we do really well.
Yeah.
And so I think I can tell you one thing. If a client reaches out to us and we find that they really don't have a need for our services, we're not going to take that client on. We're going to give them advice on how to proceed and where to go. And we have a lot of resources, and we know a lot of people, and we're members of a lot of fractional leadership associations and different groups. But more often than not, it is a combination of both a leadership, assistance, and support services team, which is why we have it.
Awesome. Yeah. And I know, just based on just kind of trends report data and information that we've collected, I know a lot of our listeners are either at or getting very close to kind of that sweet spot that you mentioned, that $1 million mark, where needs like this really do start to become more obvious and pressing. And so really do encourage you, if you want to learn more about this and really see if it's a good fit for your firm, to really reach out to Adi's team and see if they are a good fit for you. So, final question before we wrap up here is what we ask all of our guests here, and that is, if you had one final piece of advice for our listeners, what would it be?
Yes, it would be, don't try so hard to continue doing things yourself that you don't like or are not good at. We see it so much. We have business owners coming to us saying, I give up. I'm ready to give up on this business. I'm done. Because they're buried in the day-to-day. They're buried in the operation and the HR and the administration and all of those things. And they don't see a way out, because they can't imagine a life where they don't have to do this. And it's not working for them. So don't get yourself to that point. Like, look at yourself, look at your strength, look at what you like and enjoy doing. Because like, at the end of the day, yes, we all like to make money, but we're doing this because we enjoy doing this. Or at least I hope we do, because I am. And so look at yourself, what you're good at, what you want to do, and think about the things you don't want to do. And then let's try to find that yin to your yang that will help you be a partner. And that's why it's so great, because it's a partnership. It's not the same as an employee, because it is a true partnership. You have someone that's at your level, at eye level, that can take on some of these things that you just don't want to, hate dealing with. Don't force yourself to do it and just be miserable. We see this happening so much, and it really breaks my heart, because business should be fun. It should be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't agree more with that sentiment. I mean, and it's something that even I've had to learn. I don't even own a business, but even in the roles that I've had, it's one of those things where it's just like, you can't do everything. First of all, you also can't be really great at everything. And it's being able to recognize that and being able to delegate and get the help that you need for people who do have those skill sets and can do things, just as good or even better than you can, that'll really help you out and move you forward. So this has been really great. I know I've learned a lot, and usually when I learn a lot, I know our audience comes away with a lot of really good nuggets. And so really appreciate it. Thank you all for continuing to listen. Please leave a rating and review wherever you're listening to the show. And that's going to do it for us this week. Adi, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, John.
Thanks for listening. To learn more, go to spotlightbranding.com/centerstage.